Yo, yo. Hello, everyone. Thanks for showing up with us this morning. So we're gonna do an AMA. This is like a half split between the data team. So we have analysts and scientists over here, and the engineers over here. And we're just gonna have everyone introduce themselves, and then we can just kick things off with questions. You have the mic there.
Hello. Hi. I'm CCP Larrikin, and I'm a data scientist.
Hi, I'm CCP Estia. I'm also a data scientist.
I'm CCP Bjorn, and I'm the analytics manager.
Hi, I'm CCP Data, and I'm an engineer.
Yeah, and I'm CCP Soundpack, and I'm also a data engineer.
So yeah, a good friend has a mic here. So if you have a question, just raise your hand. He'll bring the mic over, and we'll try to answer.
Starting real simple, what's the percentage of players between high sec, null sec, and low sec? And wormholes as well as
Sorry, was that characters or traders?
no, it's characters. I'm generalized like 25%, 10%.
The last I looked at it, it was around 50% in high, and then I think it was like 35 in null, and then low was fairly low. I think it was like I'm guessing here. It's been a little while since I've looked at this, but like maybe 7-8% and sort of 6-7% in wormholes. It is. I mean, people don't spend all the time in one area of space. They move around, and so we could have arguments for days about how we classify where someone lives. But if we just look at proportion of time spent,
that's fine.
it's roughly about somewhere in that distribution at least. Yeah.
Can I expand that to say, what's the percentage people do exploration, mining, PvP, approximately that sort of categories, and a generalization?
That is harder to quantify. I don't have specific numbers. We do know exploration is very popular, especially for new players, but the numbers are fairly low. I'm talking very rough numbers here, but we're talking in the sort of low teens of percentage. PvP is also not all that high. I'm probably talking, like I'm very much guessing. I haven't looked at these numbers for a long, long time. Somewhere in like the 20-30%. On a daily basis, I'm talking about here. And then, a lot of people do high-sec missions and trading and what have you. This is a stat I've probably used in the past, but it is important to realize that if we look at the players over a year, something like, I think it's like 35-45% of them were not playing at the start of the year. So there's quite a lot of new players coming through, and so when we're looking at these holistic numbers, they're obviously quite skewed by those new players. If you start filtering by, you have to have spent at least 20 hours, which is, nothing in EVE, then obviously those percentages change quite radically, and once you start talking about like 100 and 500 hours, they change even more radically, and we get a much more, PvP, wormhole, etc. distribution.
No, sorry, you didn't mention anything about mining. I was looking at, do the alts make up a big portion of that?
Yeah, 100%. But I'm not talking about characters here. I'm talking more about players.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
You?
Hello. Just following a little bit of the same line of questioning, but more kind of PI oriented. How much PI is coming from high sec, null sec, low sec, wormhole plays, Botchwen? What's kind of the split?
So we don't have these numbers on us or in our heads. We're not like voodoo masterminds of the data world. We would have to maybe reply to this in these types of exact things. It would be better to either like catch us around the or just contact us around the monthly economic report. If there's something missing and then there should be in there, we can reply to those. But we don't have these exact percentages of distributions of behavior or etc. If you know off the top of your head.
I know my answer to that was going to be, I don't know. I haven't looked at it for ages, like years. Sorry.
We'll do
I
like
guess.
pre-Fanfest next year, we'll do like a camp for the data team to memorize percentages, so we'll have this better. But yeah, exactly. Like, yeah, but yeah. In the monthly economic report.
No, and I'd love to add it. There's a heap of stuff I'd love to add.
Yeah, we have a backlog we want to add. Yeah.
Huh?
So, since every one of us just have one character or one account, obviously, and multi-box is a bad thing, do we have an exact number how many players we have in EVE? Like, just really actual players?
We work on trying to estimate it a lot. We don't give those numbers out. We only report on the CCU. I think that's the only number we actually report publicly. There's a reason for that, and we don't want to go into it really. That's just kind of what we're told. Yeah, we don't give out the numbers, those types of numbers, officially. We never have, up to this point at least, but that would be a discussion you would need to have with someone else than us. Yeah, Hilmar, basically. But yeah, we spent a lot of time trying to work around this problem, and we always have been spending a lot of time working on this problem of characters, 3 on account. Then you have accounts, and players could have multiple accounts, multiple emails, multiple computers, whatever, multiple IPs, what have you. And we're trying to solve for the problem by trying to unify all accounts under a single player. So that's a very big problem of what we do. And it affects a lot of our work, like trying to create a player and aggregate data up to a player level. And it's a very annoying problem to have, that the base system is built around multiple accounts. It's much simpler in other games. For instance, our mobile game, you usually just have one. We know you have multiple, some guys playing multiple accounts, but for the most part, you can model your data around the assumption that everyone has one user, which is way simpler. So yeah. Yeah.
There are companies out there that would pay quite a lot of money to find out what those concurrent user counts are for, that's classified business information sort of thing, yeah.
Super secret classified. But yeah, it's just for some reason we haven't shared those. So yeah, at least we're not going to decide to do so here, but yeah, for someone else to decide if we do. Yep.
You mentioned you're focused a lot on trying to figure out how many players are in the game. As a data team, what other similar tasks are you trying to solve? Like, what's a big that you can tell us about?
So, as a data team, I would guess our main responsibility is making sure that we can capture data from what's happening inside the game, especially when the development teams introduce something new into the game. But now I'm talking EVE. We just have to make sure that the event logs that they emit are containing the data that they need themselves to be able to see if the features they're introducing are successful or not. And we then make reports and analysis based on the data we get, and we tell the data team after the fact, like, are your features working properly, as intended? Are they moving the needle? Are they creating engagement in the area that you wanted it to create, etc. Of course, we always also support them beforehand. So when before they decide to design something, they often ask us, like, how has this system been working in the past, or that other system, or whatever. So it's like pre-production. We're working on getting the data that we need. Warehousing, which is hugely important, and it's a big part of our job, is just to warehouse the data, maintaining the warehouse, making sure it's up to snuff. And you have to keep kind of hammering the warehouse as well. So we do that, they maintain it and fix it. So it's like constant battle, and then something new comes into it, can break it, and you have to fix it, and again and again and again and again. Endless cycle. But it's also like we're also a shared team for the entire company. It's not only EVE Online. The majority of the work we do is for EVE Online. The bulk of the data we have is for EVE Online, but we also support all our games. So Asia, for instance, works on Vanguard. We have an analyst that works on Galaxy Conquest and an analyst that works on Frontier. But yeah.
Yeah, we also work closely with the game directors and game designers as well. So if we see something in the data that looks good, bad, or just normal, we tell them. Yeah, so we do a lot, I think.
Okay, another question. Monthly report. The monthly report's brilliant. It's great to have it in the game, and it's very useful to understand what's going on. But one of the problems I found is, what do some of the things represent? Like the mineral one, what minerals? There's confusion whether Mungu's in some of them, and whether it's not in the others. Is there a possibility of getting like a single sheet or 2 sheets of what you report? I mean, I don't need to know the fine details, but maybe you'll give us them. But even when you talk to CSM, they're not sure what's in some of the reports and why they don't add up from one month to another to what they expect.
Yep, that's a great point. It's something I've been battling with for a while. It's basically some sort of definition for each chart. Look, I agree, we need to do better.
Anything's better than nothing.
Yeah. Something we have played about is like having a public Git repo, which would contain all the definitions of all these different things. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is yet. The MER is very important. I'm not trying to minimize it at all. It's an interesting thing. It's useful inside the company and externally. It is like a fraction of our workload. And honestly, the priority of it, while it is cool and important, is fairly low. I would love to spend more time on it. I will see what I can do. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. No, it's a very fair criticism. We'll see what we can do.
So every year you have like this event called Whack-A-Mole. Do you see over the past decade, do you see an incline or a decline in the accounts that we get to whack?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Whack-A-Mole.
Whack-A-mole?
Yes. That's the event where you put up all the botters in...
So the question is, do we see an increase or decline in bots?
Yes, over the last like decade, 2 decades.
Ole, would you like to?
Answer about bots. If it's a decrease, increase of bots after Whack-A-Mole. I don't know. No.
But maybe you can.
Yeah, I can talk about the input broadcasting.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had like a hackathon for like data. We could pick our projects the other day, and I picked bots because bots are bats. Yeah, and especially like input broadcasters. And I talked to the GM team and like, because we get like events every time we do something new. And what defines input broadcasters is that you are doing the same thing on multiple characters at the same time, right? But then you have something like fleets where you're supposed to do the same things multiple times. Same characters supposed to do the same thing, so it makes it a bit hard. But what I ended up looking at was just module activations. So like, how are these characters activating the same module in the same system at the same like fraction of time? And I bucket them based on some milliseconds. So like, if you had the same action as a character in the same system, acted the module at the same time, between some milliseconds, and hit some threshold, I flagged you as a botter, and I just did like a final dashboard for our GMs, which was cool, and they banned a bunch of stuff. But it's one thing we do.
Yeah. Like, I don't know if there's been a specific decline, but the decline in it. But like, we are trying to push the data, the PX team, which like they are ultimately responsible for the security of the game. They kind of own that, including rule violation like botting. But we want to try and supply them with more readily available data and more kind of live data on-the-spot data, so they can take these actions. But kind of sad to say, there's often been somewhat of a disconnect between these two teams for no reason. Like we really want to help them, they really want help, but it's kind of more maybe our superiors that kind of have different focuses at different times. So sad to say, there's often been kind of a lack of support to the support team from data, just because of priorities. But yeah.
Hi. So you mentioned logs, and I would like to know in which granularity do you log? Does every event that's emitted in Eve create a log, and how is that handled in your stack? But also, I'm interested, and you did touch on this a little bit. Do you do fingerprinting on these different users? So you were talking about bot detecting, and Oli was talking. Data was talking about basically bucketing user activity and creating like detecting bots on that basis. But usually when and this is true for cybersecurity as well, this is an arms race. If you do a detection model, the bots will just change the behaviors, and then you're basically at square zero. I presume you are trying to address this somehow. Like what are your methods for doing this?
Should I start?
Yeah, start. A lot of questions.
Yeah. So you had a question in the beginning, which was not the arms race for the botters, which was, can you remind me?
Yeah, to which granularity are you?
Yeah, the event logging. So event logging in EVE Online has a age-old history. Basically, EVE Online is structured around the SQL database. That's how it was designed originally. It's just a transactional SQL database that stores everything that's happening in the game. And that's how everything is kept in EVE Online, like the inventory system, for instance. The only way to know if an item exists or not, and who owns it and where it is based on a SQL transactional database, a relational database. And initially, when data started in CCP, we just used that database. We started querying it directly. Then we started to do like smarter ways to query it. Like we did a copy of it, and then we run procs of the copy of the database. That is the initial kind of way we treated data at CCP. Then we decided to introduce event logging, which happened, I think, first in 2008, maybe? That's the first system that was introduced for event logging, based on Hadoop and Hive. And it allowed us to capture a lot of data around what was happening when something happened. So you jump, and we can emit, like, not just that this character jumped from this to there, but kind of what his ship was, what was in the ship, etc. You could enrich the context of the event with the logging. Those lasted for a bunch of years, but then we decided to go into protobuf messages. And the reason we went into those is primarily because they started writing kind of extensions on top of the core game code of EVE Online. And that was just because it's very hard to program everything into the core game code. So they started to program things outside of the game code. And they used these protobuf messages to connect to the game. And we use the same system to tell us like kind of analytical events. So when you do something, we get an event through Quasar, the system. Oli can talk more about this, data. And we basically subscribe to these events, and they can be at whatever granularity you wish. We have some events that are like absolutely ridiculous when it comes to volume and granularity. I think I can talk about an event that we have, and we actually like we're trying to not listen to it because it's just so big in volume, but we still want to. We just need to figure out ways how to do it. It's an event that kind of, every time you pass into a different so-called bubble in space, then you get an event. So it's like if you're moving in space, it's like an event, an event, an event, an event, an event, an event. And it tracks these bubbles in space, and it gives you an event for every second, or like every kind of move between these bubbles. So it's clever in a way that you don't get an event if you're not moving, but if you're moving, you get like if you warp, you get endless events, and it's like absolutely insane. It's the same. We have events for instance, if a window if your mouse cursor is on a window, then we get an event. And if you go with a mouse cursor off the window, we get an event. Dun, 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 dun. And those types of events, they cost like what they were 70.
Yeah, it was like a lot of data we were getting from Eve was just noise.
Yeah.
We could not.
Yeah.
It's not worth parsing it, so we have like a blacklist of bad events.
Yeah. So those types of events, they used to cost up to like 70% of our load, and that's why we decided to not subscribe to those events and not listen to them unless we really know what the case and usage of them will be. So there are those types of events, so we can get them at any level. Regarding the arms race, that's always been happening. However, I feel like the answer to that is really just like, firstly, just data and have it live. There are usually always signals you can do, but I would also say like just answer the bots with the same thing. So the bots use technology to be better. We can do the same. We can just use AI to tick, 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 same way they do. And you will detect their patterns probably. That's the best way to do it. But you will always get that. Like everyone, the cheaters will always find new ways to cheat. Cheaters gonna cheat. That's how it is.
So you talk about the new feature you implement, and then you can report if they work or fail to the game designer. Do you have example of like failed new feature that you detected, confirming like Reddit rant usually that comes afterwards? If you found examples of that.
I don't know if we have.
Look, none of our features ever fail. They're always 100% successful.
Numbers are all.
So no examples. Sorry.
I don't know if I can take examples.
Maybe to add to this, sometimes it's not pass or fail. It's just we need to improve.
Yeah, exactly.
Or sometimes it's like, oh, this part of the feature is actually working fine. We just need to, I don't know, increase engagement or just something like that. And sometimes it's just for different cohorts. We do a lot of cohorting, like looking at new players or old players. And sometimes we would see like, oh, it works great for our existing players, but not for new players. So it's not always pass or fail.
No, I can say, for instance, I think it's okay. Oh, sorry. I think it's okay to to say like Skinner, for instance. We've been monitoring Skinner quite heavily since it was introduced, and I wouldn't say it's been failing on the number side, but it, for instance, didn't meet its immediate targets when it came out. Because we set targets, which were like, because we had nothing like this in the game prior to it, but we in the data team tried to estimate what the level of traffic would be, and we didn't meet those expectations when it first came out. And then it was like reintroduced, and we adjusted targets and we adjusted things based on what they were adding to the feature. But like, that's one thing that I would say maybe failed in the first month after it came out, because we came out, because we didn't really know what to expect. We set up some estimates and some targets again. But yeah.
Yeah, setting targets is also something humans do. So sometimes the targets are just wrong, and the assumptions behind targets can be wrong as well.
Hey, I got two questions. One, if you say you have the data in such a granularity, how hard is it to ban, for example, overpropped stabber bots in the ESS? Because they have very algorithmic behavior and you can predict it, and it should be very easy, but you still end up with 20 Z-kill sites of stabbers dead with all the same fit. And the second question is, how much data do you actually collect? Like what's the total amount of data you collected, and how much do you actually save? Do you recycle any of that? How long do you keep the data?
Forever. I'll let the data engineers answer the data side. Talking about the bot side, we in the data team aren't directly involved in hunting down bots. About 4 years ago, we were very involved with the security team in hunting down bots. In fact, I was part of that team for almost sort of a year. I've done presentations on it before. I absolutely love that job. It's just super, super interesting. In the recent years, they have had some of their own resources to do exactly the sort of fingerprinting we've been talking about before, and we are not heavily involved in that anymore. So yeah, absolutely, there's opportunities there with the granularity of data we have to do fingerprinting around, simultaneous actions as CCP Data was talking about, or stabbers all warping together, a whole bunch of different things, connections all coming from the same IP, heaps of opportunities there. Perhaps the biggest regret I have is that we have limited bandwidth and we cannot do everything. And I would love to do everything, but it's only so many hours in the day. And yeah, that's not something we're currently focused on. It is a serious issue. I'm not undermining the issue at all. I really don't like bots. I won't use the word I wanted to use, but yeah.
Yeah, it's our policy, CCP, about data that we don't delete any data. So we have data going back to from an.
Sorry, unless there's a GDPR request.
Yeah, unless I'm talking.
Dodge the bullet.
Close call. Yeah, we don't delete any data. So we have there's a 20-year-old game. We have data going back 20 years. So and how much of data we are how much of data we have, it's kind of what you're asking for. Are you asking us how much data we have in data lake or in data warehouse, or so we have a different raw events
How much do we get per day? Do you remember that?
Yeah.
I think we have in event logs. I think it's 20 gigabytes of zipped, compressed JSON.
For the events we get from Proto is 100 to 200 gigabits.
Yeah, and then the protos they're 100.
20 to 200.
Yeah, 120 to 200 gigabytes of data per day.
Yeah.
Per day.
And that's only Eve, and then additionally, so probably somewhere around 300 gigabytes per day.
Yeah.
Per day. 300, but because that was actually my question. How much data do you go through? So how much data does the Eve ecosystem as a whole generate on a daily basis?
So as a question
300-400 gigabytes per day.
Yeah,
holy crap.
Yeah, there's a lot of duplicates. Eve logs are so there was the old way we were collecting data. They have been deprecated for 2 years, but they're still active, and we're still parsing them. But the protos is what I would say is the main way we're getting data from today, 2035, from Eve. So yeah.
And then of course old databases still ongoing, and they're making copies, and it's being pushed into archive databases and stuff.
So roughly estimated, you currently have a 2,190 terabytes, bigger, more than 2,000 terabytes. Over 20 years. Well, okay, you lost the first
the protos
14
have not
years.
been going for 20 years. They are a relatively new thing, right? So the logs have been going from 2007.
Yeah, you lost
every proto that's in existence now came out on the same day. They've been added.
Yeah. So today's throughput is not same throughput it was 10 years ago.
You see, so it's actually growing.
Yeah, absolutely growing. So we're getting every expansion, every new release, we're getting more data in from you, how you play. So,
but that's not going into RAMMap anymore.
That's not going in
RAMMap. The SQL database. It's all. You started out with a RAMMap database.
Yeah, I started with the TQ. No. The TQ can't
We don't touch that database. That just runs the game. We just make copies of it, and not of everything necessarily, but still quite a lot of it.
Also to answer it a bit. So example of a pro event, if you mine something, we get a pro event for it. TQ doesn't track every ore you mined, it just tracks your inventory and stuff. So we have a lot more data coming through than actually is handled by the database.
If you would like to know more about the data that we collect, you should come to the Killmail talk. We'll go into more details. Which is at 1400.
Hi, I have a question about, do you have data on attendees at Fanfest from which corp? Because you're given nice data for alliances, but do you also have for corporations?
Do we have data on the corporations that are at Fanfest? Like which corporations here?
Yeah, how many members and...
Yeah, you supply it when you buy the tickets. You write it in.
Yeah,
when you
yeah,
buy the
but
tickets.
you have, because you know for the alliances, like I'm in Horde, so I was the third biggest alliance here.
Are you asking what was the biggest corporation? Because that wasn't on the flashcards. And
No,
we don't
but
remember.
it was in the opening.
No, that was alliances.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah, we can get that.
Yeah, I'm just
I don't
curious.
I don't know it off the top of my head.
Can we like publish? Can we publish things? Can we write devlogs? We can write devlogs.
Yeah. Yeah, we did this. I did this last Fanfest.
Just do it again.
Yeah, it's no problem. But yeah, you basically not only do you, of course, use your emails, which we technically could use to fetch your users and stuff like that, but you also just sign up with your character names and you actually enter the corporation, so we could just...
That's the problem, that we enter the corporation and alliance, which someone made
You're very accurate on it, actually. Like, I've checked, like, there are very few errors that are happening on that. I think it's because you want the character name to be accurately spelled on the thing or something.
Yeah, but for example, I put the ticker of my corp in there as well, and some don't, and some we are two corps basically living together symbiotically, and some people put them both in, and so going off of that data might be, oh yeah, it's this and that.
Yeah, look, it's a good question, and we could like correlate your email to that like the actual game data that we have. We have to be really careful about that. Like if we started releasing numbers about what like the actual number of corp members, because remember, many of the people in this audience have more than one character and more than one account, and some of you, I'm sure none in this room, might have spies. And I can't imagine that the groups in EVE would then take the numbers and figure out all the members that came and then found out they had too many members and then start trying to correlate that to find spies, et cetera, et cetera. So we need to be a little bit careful about what we release because it's very easy for that sort of thing to happen unexpectedly.
And thank you for the data that you provide with the charity. I love that.
Yeah. Glad to hear it. If
I would pay more for more in-depth and longer and...
Oh, interesting.
Yes, just saying.
It's for charity, you can go and... But if by all means, if you have feedback on the sheets, I don't know if you've seen them, but if you have any feedback, like just on things you would like to see on the sheets next year or whatever, we'd be happy to hear all feedback. Yeah.
Thank you.
All feedback is welcome for the data sheets. We're gonna do them again, so.
First of all, I would like to just thank the developers for giving us the game, and just you don't get the appreciation like publicly said. I think you get more flack, but the new event sites, they are spawned in wormholes in shatter systems, and they're very specific, and they are much more engaging. What kind of data has that given the team, and to correlate into what is coming in the future for rat spawns, rat tactics, PvE?
It's a fantastic question. None of us up here have specifically worked on that. So the data analysts that are working on that part of the game aren't on the stage, and so yes, we're definitely collecting information. I don't know. I don't know what the results are.
Maybe a follow-up then.
Yeah.
Back in the days, each developer could allocate a specific time of their work schedule for their own pet projects. So what would be your pet projects? This is for everyone.
Yeah, I think we'll just go maybe...
Yeah, we do like hack days, couple of or 4 times a year or something. My pet project now, I don't know. We are really interested in supporting the ESI team, so probably something around that. Like we want to open up the access to the database we just created, or like have been developing for the past couple of months, a couple of years. So yeah, probably some work around that.
Yeah, I agree with CCP Sandpack. Like, I think the ASE could give it much more love. As you hear, we have a lot of data about you guys. ASE currently, most of the data goes through the TQ, goes straight to the game. We can give you a lot more flexibility by just getting data from the data team. It's something we've been working with the ESI team doing, and like a lot of new features come to ESI are going to work like that. So yeah, it's very interesting to give the players more data back, so you guys can build awesome tools or informations and do your own graphs and stuff. Yeah.
The last one I did, that was around, actually with 7-Pack, on our last hack day, we did like a tool for Galaxy Conquest, a mobile game, where you could submit like combinations of commanders and ships and see kind of their like a win and loss ratio in the game. Like ideally it was like a tool for us to own the game, so we could just like see which combination was best, and then we could set them up. But it was also for like to the design team later on to be able to see like if some combinations were kind of in the meta when they kind of shouldn't be. So yeah, that was what we did last time.
Yeah, I mostly want to work more on clustering. I think just cluster, trying to find out, like putting player behavior into certain clusters and then just see how they behave differently. And also combining EVE data with Vanguard data, as I mostly work on Vanguard, but combining is cool.
I think what I would really like to improve is better ways of visualizing data at a geographic level. So I'm talking about like the map in game. There's lots of issues with just using the existing star map to try and show density. And so I'd love to spend more time and probably develop some visualization tools, like programmatic visualization tools to help with that. That's the answer I would give, and I'm definitely giving to my boss. The answer I'm giving to you guys, where my boss can't hear, is something to do with kill mails.
Smooth.
Yeah.
I have a question regarding player-based behavior prediction. Do you have any prediction model or like simulation of New Eden, how the system would behave in case you tweak something, like bring new sites, change taxes? Do you have any simulation or forecasting model on that?
Look, we have in the past. We generally don't do simulation models around like, hey, if we add this site or something like that. It's something that sounds like a really interesting project to try and explore. We have done more economic modeling in the past. We've done a fair bit with that. We've certainly done a lot of player modeling, obviously around retention and, you know, sort of like key business indicators. I mean, I would love to do something around like modeling for like sites or ship changes or something. It is that is a really hard like modeling problem. Like there's so many inputs into that, and they're not all logical, right? They're not all predictable. Yeah, I'd love to sink my teeth into it, but I think I could probably spend 6 months and then come out of it with, well, I've learned a lot, but I have nothing to show for it. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Again, like we do like a lot of the modeling we've been doing has been focused on business stuff for the majority. Simulation is really interesting, but it's also like, what's the point? There needs to be a point to it. If it's a developer seeing how a player might behave in a situation, it's a very niche purpose, I would say. If you're going to try to forecast how the ecosystem or economy responds to a change, fine, but like you can also just see it. Like it depends on the potential impact of the change. Like so, yeah, we're a small team. Retrospective, we're kind of looking at it from outside in. We support 4 games, so we have very little bandwidth to spend on like everything we want to do. So we tried a lot of things, but it's always kind of, there needs to be a very concrete point and purpose behind what we're doing, and some senior leadership kind of buy-in to most of the things we do, which usually tends to be business, sadly.
And for very new things, it's also very hard.
Yes. But there's like, yeah, I don't know, like for instance, like it's a good example maybe, but there's like there's a German mathematician, statistician who does these phenomenal simulation models on like a bunch of these physicists, like kind of theories and stuff. For instance, he has like a model which describes kind of how pedestrians walk and how like if one stops, then what effect, how that affects the rest of the people that are walking. Do you know what I mean? And it's like the traffic problem, like when a bunch of cars are in the same line and one stops at the front, how much will that delay the entire sequence of cars behind it? And he does like these fascinating simulation models. You can find them online. I can probably find it. But that's just like, that's kind of a great example of kind of what we're into. Like, it's fascinating, but it needs to be something more than fascinating for us to usually work on it, if that makes sense. It needs to be practical. It needs to either change the design, implement decisions, drive some actions, affect the business, like, yeah. Help the players, which would affect the business positively. But yeah, there needs to be some points to it out. It can't be fun and games and theory all the time.
This is something I really struggle with, actually, as a designer, or someone will come to me and ask me a question and I'll be like, oh, that's really interesting. But it's very important to step back and be like, okay, but if I answer this, is it actually going to result in some like advantage? Like, is the designer going to change something, or is it just like, oh, it would be interesting to know? And don't get me wrong, it's very interesting to know. But if it's not going to help us make positive change, then...
And to be fair, like, we've done a lot of things that are more just informational. A lot of things that are purely informational. Like monthly economic report largely is just informational, but it's a phenomenal tool, and we've spent a lot of time on it. So yeah. Thank you.
All right.
Yes.
It sounds like you're a very small and overworked team. And
I just complain a lot. Don't think about it.
But then, obviously, with the growing data and everything that's coming in, and with modern technology, have you found any use for like helping augment your team's ability with like AI or machine learning tools or technology that you found super interesting for?
It's a great question. We're actually kind of on the journey to scale in that direction at the moment. I wouldn't say we've used a lot of at least not generative AI or AI in the past in general. We've used it for like niceties primarily up to this stage. Of course, we jumped on the wagon when it came along to assist with our daily work, like just co-pilot tooling and that type of stuff. We use it, for instance, in the character sheets. It makes the text that's in the character sheets. That's just like those types of fun bits. We have created like Slack bots and stuff like that to help us with like, so you ask it a question, like how much shit was mined in that system or in Eve yesterday. And it takes your question, turns it into a SQL statement, and then runs against our databases without ever giving ChatGPT the data we own. So it just creates a SQL command out of the prompt you give it, which is a fun tool to do. But it's mostly fun stuff like that. Yeah.
That falls under the category of fun, but not very useful, because we like it's code that's generated by AI, and it's not that good yet. So maybe in 5 or 6 years we can use it for actually giving it to other people in the business. It was a fun project though. I did it.
And yeah, we have yeah. Yeah. We're out of time. Sorry, one more question.
Okay, so guess I'm the last one. One thing that I would improve with the character sheets, that you can purchase outside is to actually have the whole history of the character on it.
Yes.
Like not just the last year.
Yes.
So the whole history.
But then we can't sell them every year, like, you know. Well, they get
Yes.
they add on to themselves.
You actually can sell them because every year you get new data.
Yes, but we have thought about it and we want to do it. But as we've talked about a bit, like in this talk, then we don't have all the data for all times. Like there are layers to when this data point was available, and then they get added to and added to and added to. To be fair, I think most of the stuff that's on the character sheet, we probably could extend the history quite a bit, probably a lot. So yeah, it's definitely something we thought about, and can definitely look into doing, like extending the history of the sheets.
Yeah, like we don't, so like for a data warehouse, we don't historically load every table back 20 years.
No.
It's like, it's a question when you get, when people ask for like some table or stuff, like how much, I always ask like how much data do you actually need? Because it's a 20-year-old game, so how far back do you actually need to analyze the data? Usually just go like 5-10 years for analysts. Yeah. But we have the data, we just don't put in the work to backload everything.
I mean, it can be expensive to process through like terabytes of data. So yeah, we only like selected views. We have the history since 2003, but there are not many data points that have stood the test of time.
No, thank you. That was just a suggestion. The main question I wanted to ask actually was, does CCP own all the data physically, or is it in some sort of cloud-based storage somewhere?
Cloud-based storage, yeah, bit of both, but yeah, mainly cloud.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's still ours.
Maybe one more question. Did you have your hand up?
Here you go.
Oh, thank you. Speaking about old characters, would you be open to writing a blog post where you kind of share some information about how many of the original players are still playing or characters still active, something like that? How many are, let's say, 10 years old, how many are 15 years old, how many are 5 years old, something like that?
Yeah, I can look into that. Sorry?
CCP Data, we found an issue with one of our tables around characters, and he had to go back and manually backfill some of those characters. And there's 19 characters that weren't in the table that were born before the game was launched. And those 19 characters are players or characters that were playing in the open beta of EVE Online, like before it was launched. I don't believe any of those characters are active, but some of them might be. I don't know, but yeah. Anyway, sorry, just like a little interesting tidbit, like yeah.
But yeah, I can promise that I can do that. But I have a picture on my PC of this exact thing. But that's not characters. That's like accounts or players by age, which is a fascinating thing. It might surprise you. You might think like EVE is mainly players from like way back when. It's actually not. Like I think half of our current players are from this year and last year. Yeah, it's amazingly yeah. But those are again the players. I don't think I was looking at characters. I can't promise anything, but it's a very fascinating thing. I can maybe give you like a little. I'll speak to someone if I can do it. If I'm allowed to do it.
We did it at Fanfest a couple of years ago. In fact, we got some guy that started on day one up on stage.
Yeah. I did this last Fanfest about like, but I didn't tell everything about like all characters of all time. I was just more talking about like the guys that have been here since like day one and stuff like that. Don't know if I'm allowed to share like the entire time series of how character age has been evolving in EVE for all time, but I can ask if I'm allowed. If I'm allowed, I can look into it. It's not a complex thing to do. It's very easy data to run. But yeah, I think we're out of time. Thank you so much. If you want to ask us more questions, we're at the data booth, just outside the room. We'll be willing to answer more questions. And we have a kill mail presentation in this room at 2. Yeah, you can just stay here until that time.